This is the Louie Tee Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Hey, yo. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. It's debate time. I just posted a video about 8 hours ago or so, my Week 8 picks for Week 8 in the National Football League. And I was talking Broncos and Packers. Huge matchup in week number 8, arguably two of the best teams in the league. By far the biggest matchup we've had on the docket this season. Both teams come into the game at 6-0. And I made mention of something that I feel very strongly about. This Denver Broncos defense being arguably one of the best we've ever seen. And I said they might be, and they're not there yet. And that's what this debate is all about. They might be the best defense these eyes have ever seen. Now, yeah, I saw the 2000 Ravens, and my man Michael Caine, MC the Sarge, always dropping knowledge, always dropping gems on this melon. He says, hey, look, man, 2000 Ravens defense, best you've ever seen, and the best we will ever see in our lifetime. Look, I can't debate that right now. I can't, but I'm asking you, and I'm posing this question because I believe this to be the truth. If the Denver Broncos continue on the pace that they're on right now, I firmly believe they're going to be the best defense I've ever seen in my life. Now, here's why. Ravens in 2000 played in a different era, okay? The Ravens, that defense, they were different. And here's why. It was a different era. You could run the football 37 times and grind it out and win the game 13-10. Those days are over with. You can't do that anymore. It was a different day. You can intimidate receivers. You can hit quarterbacks. There were different things defenses could do to have the upper hand. The game is set up and tailored for offenses to rule the day in the National Football League right now. And to see a defense do what the Denver Broncos are doing, and they've got elite level players on each level. They've got playmaking talent at each level, and they've even got supporting cast members that step up in very opportune times of the ball game, like a David Bruton. He's not a household name, but he's made some huge plays this season. They've got guys littered all over that defense, and the thing that separates them is the fact that they've got playmakers at every single level. Now, the Ravens had the same thing in 2000, but again, I'm looking at the different era, and it's hard to compare eras because it's so different. It's vastly different. I mean, the 85 Bears is different than the 2000 Ravens, which are going to be different than the 2015 Denver Broncos. But in my mind, I look at it this way. The league is so complex now. Defenses are more complex. Offenses are more complex. The rules have changed to benefit the offense. You can't get away with a 13-10 win anymore. Those days are over. You've got to score points to be able to win in this league, and it's even harder to stop teams from scoring points, which makes what the Denver Broncos are doing to me that much more impressive. In the 80s, it was knockdown, drag out, body bag games. We don't have names like that for games anymore because you can't do the type of things to players, and we know why you can't do that, and I'm not advocating that they should go back to that because that was a different time. Rules were different. Guys thought different. It was a different mindset back then. We know the effects of concussions and what they can do to your body and your mental state. So I'm not advocating for us to go back there, but it was a different time. Guys thought differently. The game was played differently. And the offenses weren't as complex. It was almost caveman football back then. Guys would turn around. You could hand it off to your back 35 times and let him run for 150 yards, and you go play action fake off of that. You could hit receivers across the middle and intimidate them. You could rough them up at the line of scrimmage. It wasn't the Mel Blount rule essentially because that was back in the 70s, but You couldn't jack them up as much as Mel Blount did in the 70s, but you could really have your way with a receiver and really mess up the timing of a route. You could intimidate them, hitting them as soon as they touch the football. Hell, sometimes guys wouldn't even get their hands on the football and they would get destroyed over the middle of the field. It was just a different day, okay? You could slow the pace of the game down to a snail's pace by controlling the clock, by handing the football off, which is what the 2000 Ravens used to do with Jamal Lewis. Turn around, hand him the football, take the air out of the football, and really speed up the game, but slow down the pace, because you would possess the football, and so you would minimize the amount of mistakes that would be made by the offense. It's totally different now. When you look at this Denver Broncos defense, you've got to defend the pass. This is a passing league. As much as we want to talk about the run game and how it needs to be prevalent for teams to win, I agree. You got to be able to run the football. Balance is the key in this league. When you need to be able to run, you got to be able to run. I'm not saying you got to be able to run it all day long, but when you need to be able to run the football, it is imperative that you are able to do so. But you got teams like the Patriots where they'll take a game plan, and they're a week-to-week game plan team. They will take a game plan like they did against the Jets last week, or, well, this is 2 weeks ago, I guess you could say now, because they played their week 8 game already. But last week in week 7, when they played against the Jets, they totally scrapped the run game and said, you know what? Tom Brady's going to be our run game today. Short passing game is going to rule the day in this week. And next week, we'll change the game plan and we'll hand it off a little bit more against the Dolphins. But this week in particular, we're not going to run the football. And so Tom Brady can air it out 45 times. You didn't see guys throwing the football 62 times like Aaron Rodgers, or excuse me, like Phillip Rivers did just 2 weeks ago against the Green Bay Packers. He threw it again 50, what are we talking, 55, 58 times? He just threw it against the Raiders in week 7. So you're talking about a guy that just threw the football over 110 times in 2 weeks. Who was doing that back in the 2000s? Who was doing that back in the 80s? Nobody was doing that kind of stuff. And so you got to contend with that on a week in, week out basis. Teams spreading you out, putting 5 receivers on the field. You got to be able to contend with that. And that Denver Broncos defense is opportunistic, just like the 2000 Ravens were. They get pressure, and I think they get more pressure on the quarterback than the 2000 Ravens. I'm not sure if they get more pressure on the quarterback than the 85 Bears. That defense was ferocious in that sense because of that 4-6 Bear defense that that Buddy Ryan put together, and nobody had really seen that up until that point. I think that defense was ferocious. They used to get after the quarterback. I'm not sure that the Denver Broncos right now get after the quarterback as much as that defense does, but they get after the quarterback. For today's NFL, that pressure that they're able to apply with the guys that they have, and it's a constant pressure coming at you. They've got guys coming off the bench. Okay, Shaquille Barrett comes off the bench and he can get you for a sack and a half in any given game. You've already got DeMarcus Ware on one side and Von Miller on the other. I love the Jackson kid on the defensive line. They've got stuff everywhere and they come at you in waves. When Wolf is healthy, he's another guy that can get some pressure on the quarterback. Shane Ray, the youngster, before he got injured, he was applying pressure. They come in waves. They got guys upon guys that can get pressure on you. So I think the Denver Broncos, they check that box off. They've got playmakers at the linebacker positions. They've got guys that can run. Okay, and that's one of my favorite things about this defense is it's so fast. They can adapt to just about any situation, and that's usually the mark of a great defense is they can adapt to any situation. They're very malleable in that sense because they need to be a run-stopping defense that day. They can gear up and stop the run. They need to be a defense, and I don't think their run defense is as great as the 2000 Ravens, but it's good enough, and it patches up and masks any other deficiencies that they may have because they still get pressure on the quarterback. They got good enough run defense. It's not as dominant as that 2000s Ravens run defense. But in this day and age, run defense doesn't have to be as great because teams aren't running it as much. So I make the argument, and I'm going to say this. I'll make the argument that if they continue on the pace that they're on, they've scored probably just as many points defensively as the offense has scored in Denver. If they continue on the pace that they're on with the pick sixes and the timely interceptions that they've had, they've single-handedly won about 2 games this season for that Denver Broncos football team. If they continue playing the way that they're playing for the full schedule and go on to win the Super Bowl, I think we'll be talking about this Denver Broncos defense being one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen. the way that the game is set up now to benefit the offenses and the way that defense is playing in Denver, I've never seen anything quite like this before in this era. And I'm telling you right now, some of those other defenses, I don't know if they would have been able to hold up against what the NFL has done to the game in terms of changing the way that you can hit. And I'm not saying it's for the worse. Again, I don't think that the game needs to be a caveman game in order for it to be enjoyable for the masses. Everyone's still watching. We're watching it at some of the highest levels the league has ever seen. So look, even though the product may not be as good sometimes with the penalties and some of the different things, we got clock management issues, we got referees not knowing the rules, not making proper calls. Even though some of the actual play itself may be somewhat contaminated right now, we're still watching. We're gonna watch because we love this game that's known as the National Football League. So we're gonna continue to watch. But tell you this much, this Denver Broncos defense has a chance to go down in history. It's one of the best, if not the best defense we've ever seen. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Ask the 2000 Ravens to go 4 corners deep and try to cover some of these spread offenses that we're seeing in the National Football League, where teams decide to put 4 receivers and an athletic tight end on the field. Ask Peter Boulware to go out in coverage and cover one of these athletic tight ends. He's not covering Jordan Reed. He's not covering one of these. I'm just saying, it was a different day. You were able to get away with more defensively. You didn't have to do as much defensively. This is a different time, and I think the players are faster, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're more athletic. This Denver Broncos defense, they're doing some unprecedented things. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Michael Caine, I hear you. 2000 Ravens probably are going to be, it's all said and done, the best defense that these eyes have ever seen. They won a Super Bowl. This Denver Broncos defense has not. If they do, we'll come back and have the same discussion with you. Have a good one. Let's debate. Greatest defense ever. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie Tee, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.